December 15th, 1944. Ardennes Forest, Belgium. The radio operator inside Sherman Tank Dragon 6 transcribed the urgent warning from division headquarters. German panzer columns detected moving through fog. Multiple armored formations. Estimated arrival. Your sector 0600 hours. Staff Sergeant Michael Patterson, commanding a platoon of 5 Sherman tanks, studied the tactical map under red filtered light. 16 American tanks against an unknown number of German panzers, vehicles whose thick armor and powerful guns had dominated battlefields since the war began. What none of them knew was that these 33-ton medium tanks were about to demonstrate how superior battlefield communication could overcome raw firepower, forcing the Wehrmacht to fundamentally alter their tactical doctrine in armored warfare. The Germans owned superior gun range and armor protection. Since the Normandy landings in June 1944, German Panthers and Tigers had engaged American armor at distances where Sherman's 75mm guns were ineffective. American tankers called encounters with heavy German armor Tiger hunts, and they had become deadly games of cat and mouse, where German crews held overwhelming advantages. The Wehrmacht's superiority in armor protection had been demonstrated catastrophically at Villers-Bocage in June, where a single Tiger tank destroyed 14 Allied tanks and 15 other vehicles in 15 minutes. Their 88mm guns could penetrate Sherman armor at 3,000 yards. Their crews had trained for years in combined arms tactics. Their thick frontal armor could deflect most Sherman rounds at any angle, where American crews struggled to find weak points. General Heinz Guderian's doctrine was straightforward: superior firepower, superior armor, superior tactics. Control the battlefield through technological dominance. The Americans might have numerical superiority, but quality would triumph over quantity. Without better tanks, American armor would bleed through attrition warfare. The Sherman represented a different philosophy entirely. Tank Platoon 4 had arrived in Belgium with the first replacement tanks in November 1944. Each medium tank, M4, a 3-displaced 33 tons, length 19 feet 4 inches, width 8 feet 7 inches, height 9 feet, armor thickness just 2 inches on the frontal glacis, barely adequate against German anti-tank weapons. Lieutenant Robert Henderson commanded Dragon 6, examining his crew's equipment before dawn. One 75mm main gun, effective to 1,000 yards against enemy armor. One coaxial 30 caliber machine gun. One 50 caliber machine gun on the turret. The main gun suffered from inadequate penetration against frontal armor of Panthers and Tigers, requiring crews to maneuver for flank shots, an extremely dangerous proposition. The tanks carried basic instruments initially, relying on visual spotting and verbal commands for coordination. But the Sherman's primary advantage was communication. One SCR-508 radio set installed in every tank commander's position. One SCR-506 radio for intercom communication within the tank. One additional SCR-536 radio in platoon leader tanks for coordination with higher command. Maximum transmission range 10 miles on FM frequency modulation. Immune to most battlefield interference. German panzer companies typically equipped only command tanks with radios, while individual tank commanders communicated through hand signals and flag semaphores. In fluid combat situations, communication meant survival. The radio installation defied conventional military thinking. While other nations limited radios to senior commanders, American doctrine placed them in every single tank. The entire production system was designed around communication infrastructure that could be manufactured at scale and maintained under field conditions. Each radio set required 3 months training for operators and cost $1,800. A complete German Panzer IV required 9 months and cost $105,000. Radio technician Corporal James Martinez had spent 11 months learning every frequency modulation the SCR-508 could produce. An electronics enthusiast from Chicago who had built amateur radio sets before enlisting. Martinez could troubleshoot radio problems in complete darkness under fire. These radios are temperamental, Martinez explained to new crew members. Wrong frequency selection, and you lose contact with headquarters. Let crystals get wet and transmissions become garbled, but maintain them properly, and they give you tactical awareness no enemy can match. Martinez had modified antenna installations based on European weather conditions. He developed a pre-combat checklist that included testing all frequencies, ensuring backup crystals were dry, and confirming intercom systems functioned perfectly. His innovations would keep platoons coordinated when German commanders were still using hand signals. Hauptmann Friedrich Weber stood in the cupola of his Panther Ost-C, leading 7 panzers through morning fog at 15 kilometers per hour. 12 years in the Wehrmacht had taught him to trust his crew's experience. Every movement required careful coordination. Every position change took precious minutes to communicate. Tonight's mission: advance through American lines toward Bastogne before reinforcements arrived. The Panzer Column would engage any American armor encountered, using superior range and protection to destroy enemy tanks before they could respond effectively. It was doctrine refined through years of Eastern Front combat, where German technical superiority had proven decisive. The Panther's main advantage was its killing power and protection. At 23 feet long, the Panther needed careful maneuvering in forest terrain. Her frontal armor, of 4.7 inches, made her nearly invulnerable to American 75mm guns at normal combat ranges. Her 75mm high-velocity gun could penetrate any Allied tank at 2,000 yards. Against numerically superior forces, the Panther's advantages made each tank worth 3 Shermans. December 16, 1944, 0540 hours. 5 Sherman tanks, from 4th Armored Division, idled in defensive positions along a tree line. Engines warming, running at idle to maintain operating temperature. Radios already conducting net checks, confirming all frequencies operational. Staff Sergeant Patterson, in Dragon 6, led the platoon defense. The tanks spread out at 200-yard intervals, mutually supporting, all commanders in constant radio contact. With the SCR 508, they maintained awareness that German tankers could only dream of. Battalion headquarters provided continuous updates. Enemy armor, approximately 3 kilometers northwest. Speed 10 kilometers per hour. Estimated 7 vehicles. Air reconnaissance impossible due to fog. At 0552, lead Sherman spotted movement through the fog. 7 panzers in column formation, advancing cautiously toward American positions. The standard American armor doctrine called for coordinated maneuver to expose enemy flanks. But against Panthers, whose frontal armor was impenetrable, Patterson needed something different. Using radio coordination, he orchestrated a response no German commander could match. Dragon 6, to all Dragon units. Enemy armor identified as Panthers, execute Tactic 7. Acknowledge. Each tank commander responded instantly. Dragon 2, acknowledged. Dragon 3, acknowledged. Dragon 4, acknowledged. Dragon 5, acknowledged. 5 separate crews acting as one coordinated unit through radio communication. Within 30 seconds, all 5 Shermans knew the plan, their individual roles, and the timing. No hand signals, no flag semaphores, no messengers riding between tanks. Just clear, instant communication that transcended the fog and chaos. Dragon 2 and Dragon 3 maneuvered left, engines roaring as they bounded forward using terrain masking. Dragon 4 and Dragon 5 moved right, coordinating their advance through constant radio updates. Patterson and Dragon 6 remained in position, the anvil against which other tanks would drive the enemy. The first Panther spotted Dragon 2 at 1,200 yards and fired. The shell passed over Dragon 2's turret by inches. Before the German crew could reload, Dragon 2 radioed exact enemy position to all tanks. Dragon 3, target Panther, bearing 270, range 1100, moving to your flank. Dragon 3 acknowledged and moved into position without ever seeing the enemy directly. Radio communication had provided perfect situational awareness. At 0603, Dragon 4 and Dragon 5 reached flanking positions. Both tanks fired simultaneously at the lead. Panther's side armor from 800 yards. Both rounds penetrated. The Panther erupted in flames. The second Panther commander, lacking radio communication with his platoon, had no idea his lead tank was destroyed until he saw flames. He tried to signal other tanks using hand gestures. Precious seconds wasted while American tanks repositioned. Dragon 2 reported second Panther, turning to face flank attack. Dragon 6 immediately maneuvered forward, firing at the Panther's exposed rear quarter at 900 yards. Penetration confirmed. The remaining 5 Panthers attempted to form defensive positions, but their commanders struggled to coordinate without comprehensive radio nets. Each tank fought individually, unaware of threats from multiple directions. Dragon 3 and Dragon 5 coordinated a crossfire that trapped the third Panther between overlapping fields of fire. The German crew bailed out after taking hits from both directions within 20 seconds. Patterson directed the engagement, like a conductor leading an orchestra. Dragon 4, enemy tank reversing your position. Dragon 2, provide suppressive fire bearing 315. Dragon 5, move to position Charlie and stand by for fire command. Every Sherman knew exactly where friendly tanks were positioned. Every crew understood the overall tactical situation. When Dragon 3's gun malfunctioned, Patterson instantly reorganized the formation through radio commands, pulling Dragon 3 back while Dragon 4 filled the gap. The reorganization took 45 seconds. A German commander would have needed 5 minutes and exposed himself to enemy fire while communicating through visual signals. The engagement lasted 17 minutes. 4 Panthers destroyed, 3 Panthers withdrew in disorder. 0 American tanks lost. The radio advantage had overcome firepower and armor disadvantages through perfect coordination. Captain Weber survived the engagement, his Panther one of 3 that escaped. His after-action report noted, "The Americans fight as though all tanks share one mind. They coordinate maneuvers impossible without extensive pre-planning, yet they adapt instantly to changing situations. Their communication capability exceeds our tactical doctrine." The engagement of December 16th convinced General Omar Bradley to emphasize radio coordination in all armored doctrine. By January 1945, 32 additional tank battalions received enhanced radio training. New tactics developed through hard experience showed how communication superiority could overcome material disadvantages. Intelligence revealed American radio capabilities far exceeded German understanding. Every American tank could communicate. Every platoon leader coordinated with battalion headquarters. Response times measured in seconds versus minutes for German forces. Colonel Harold Williamson developed new tactical doctrine based on radio advantages. Tank platoons would operate as coordinated units rather than individual vehicles. One tank would spot targets while others maneuvered for shots. When engaging superior armor, multiple tanks would attack simultaneously from different angles. Coordination achieved through constant radio communication. Following engagements where American tankers defeated German forces through superior coordination, radio-enabled tactics became central to armored doctrine. While individual Shermans couldn't match Panther firepower, their communication systems allowed them to fight as integrated teams. Tank platoons practiced radio discipline and communication procedures, attacking German armor when possible through coordinated maneuvers. Though individual tank losses remained significant, the force multiplication through communication reduced American casualties by 30% compared to early 1944 engagements. On February 23, 1945, 18 German Panthers attacked American positions near the Roger River in one of the largest armored engagements of the campaign. Tank platoons coordinated to intercept, achieving decisive results through radio-enabled tactics. The Americans destroyed 11 Panthers, while losing 6 Shermans, illustrating how communication could overcome technical disadvantages. However, the tactical impact was transformative. German reports noted, enemy coordination makes frontal assaults extremely costly, must avoid engagement where Americans can utilize numerical and communication advantages. Staff Sergeant Patterson's platoon achieved multiple engagements, destroying 9 German armored vehicles throughout the campaign. This demonstrated radio-equipped forces could be effective when fighting as coordinated teams rather than individual platforms. General Hermann Balck, Germany's most skilled armor commander, personally studied American radio tactics. His analysis concluded, the American advantage in battlefield communication represents a paradigm shift in armored warfare. Their ability to coordinate multiple vehicles instantly provides tactical flexibility we cannot match. At 0730, American forward observers detected a German counterattack forming 3 kilometers east. Within 90 seconds, every tank platoon in the sector knew enemy composition, direction, and estimated arrival time. Battalion headquarters coordinated a defensive response that positioned 40 tanks in mutually supporting positions before German forces even began their advance. German commanders had no equivalent capability. Their radio nets connected only headquarters elements. Individual tank platoons fought with limited awareness of overall battle conditions. The result was piecemeal attacks that allowed Americans to defeat German forces through concentration enabled by superior communication. The shift to radio-coordinated tactics marked the evolution of armored warfare from individual tank duels to integrated team operations. While German panzers retained superiority in armor and firepower, American communication advantage proved decisive in fluid combat situations. Production statistics revealed the industrial equation. The United States built 49,000 Sherman tanks during World War II. Each tank included comprehensive radio equipment as standard, even with higher individual vulnerability compared to German armor. They provided decisive advantages through coordination. Training programs at the Armored Force School in Fort Knox, Kentucky, produced over 12,000 tank commanders. Each crew received extensive radio communication training before deployment. By mid-1945, tank crews received upgraded SCR-508 radios with extended range. The improved radio discipline, introduced in early 1945, reduced communication errors significantly. These improvements transformed tank platoons into highly effective coordinated fighting units. The Wehrmacht attempted various countermeasures with limited success. Radio intercept teams monitored American frequencies, but FM radio and frequency hopping made interception difficult. Jamming equipment proved ineffective against multiple redundant communication channels. The fundamental problem remained. German tactical doctrine had not anticipated an opponent where every combat vehicle could communicate instantly. Their entire armored warfare philosophy assumed senior commanders controlled operations while individual crews executed orders. American doctrine inverted this model. Tank commanders at the lowest levels maintained constant communication, enabling decentralized decision-making within coordinated frameworks. Mathematical advantages were overwhelming. An American tank platoon could coordinate 5 vehicles through radio in seconds. A German platoon required minutes to communicate through visual signals. In fluid combat, this difference was decisive. Sherman crews learned that, while they couldn't match German firepower individually, 5 coordinated tanks could defeat 3 isolated Panthers through superior communication and maneuver. The development of combined arms tactics, utilizing radio coordination, represented adaptation that German forces struggled to counter. Infantry, armor, and artillery could coordinate through radio nets in real time, creating overwhelming local superiority. Tank crew service attracted volunteers seeking technical challenges. Average age 21 years. Many had electronics or mechanical backgrounds. They learned radio operation, tactics, and crew coordination through intensive preparation. Living conditions were harsh: cramped interiors, extreme temperatures, constant mechanical maintenance. Combat stress was intense, with all crew exposed to catastrophic ammunition fires. Casualty rates reached 33% in some units. Yet effectiveness remained high. Sherman crews knew their communication advantage could overcome material disadvantages. They developed tactics that exploited radio coordination, turning potential weakness into asymmetric advantage. The Sherman tank campaign revolutionized understanding of armored warfare and force multiplication through technology. While Shermans were inferior to German armor in direct comparison, their communication systems provided decisive advantages in actual combat. Post-war analysis revealed radio communications' primary contribution was enabling coordination impossible for opponents lacking equivalent systems. Modern armored forces universally adopted comprehensive communication networks. The fundamental principle established by Sherman tank operations remained unchanged. Superior battlefield awareness through communication could overcome material disadvantages. In the fields of Belgium and Germany, 33-ton medium tanks had proven that integrated operations could neutralize traditional superiority. Sherman tanks alone could not match Panther firepower, but combined with radio coordination and numerical advantages, they contributed to decisive victory. The Wehrmacht entered the war confident in technical supremacy. They had not anticipated that American forces would employ comprehensive communication infrastructure that transformed individual vehicles into coordinated fighting systems. Captain Friedrich Weber, who survived multiple engagements against American armor, wrote, "The Sherman tank taught us that modern war requires adaptation to information age warfare. Their tanks were individually inferior, but their coordination was unbeatable." The final accounting was strategically significant, despite material disadvantages. Superior communication enabled force multiplication that overcame firepower and armor deficits. Thousands of engagements, won through coordination rather than individual superiority. The cumulative effect contributed to Allied victory in northwestern Europe. In the museums where Sherman tanks rest as monuments, the small radio sets mounted inside turrets represent the technological advantage that proved decisive. These radios, often overlooked in favor of guns and armor, served as proof that young crews in adequate tanks could defeat superior opponents through perfect coordination, proving that information dominance could influence strategic outcomes even when material advantages remained limited. The radio-equipped Shermans had demonstrated that future armored warfare would require integrated communication, tactical flexibility, and recognition that even outmatched combatants could achieve victory when employed as part of comprehensive coordinated operations.